Admiral Zexithara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn, watching the stars streak past through the viewing port. His forearms moved gracefully across the command console while his golden eyes focused on the tactical display. The Third Fleet of the Galactic Empire spread out behind him like a deadly swarm of metal wasps, each ship gleaming with the polished perfection that marked Imperial technology. "Admiral, we are approaching the target system," reported Commander Veltar from the navigation station. "The primitive world they call Earth should be visible soon." Zexithara's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his species. Another conquest, another world to add to the Empire's vast collection. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had expanded across the galaxy, bringing civilization to the primitive races scattered among the stars. Some species joined willingly after seeing the Empire's superior technology. Others required more persuasion. The humans would require persuasion. Intelligence reports painted them as a young species, barely 200 years into their industrial age. They had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel and possessed crude energy weapons. Their ships were small, inefficient, and built with primitive materials like steel and titanium instead of the advanced composites used by civilized races. "Sir, we are entering the outer system now," announced the sensor operator. "Initial scans show..." "This is strange." Zexithara's attention sharpened. "Report. The planetary defenses are not what we expected, Admiral. There are no orbital defense platforms around the third planet. No military installations on their moon. Their space traffic appears to be mostly commercial vessels moving between their planet and what appears to be mining operations in the asteroid belt." The Admiral frowned. Most primitive species at least attempted to defend their homeworld when the Empire arrived. They built crude weapons platforms or assembled their pathetic fleets in a desperate last stand. The humans seem to be ignoring them entirely. "Perhaps they have not detected us yet," suggested Commander Veltar. "Impossible. Our fleet displacement is massive enough to be detected by any civilization with basic space technology." Zexithara studied the tactical display more carefully. "Show me these mining operations." The main screen shifted to display the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets. Thousands of asteroids drifted in their ancient orbits, many showing signs of human industrial activity. Mining ships moved between the larger rocks, extracting metals and other resources. It looked exactly like what a primitive species would do when they first reached their asteroid belt. "Wait," said the sensor operator, his voice rising with confusion. "Admiral, there is something else. I am detecting a massive energy signature near the largest asteroid cluster. Show me." The screen zoomed in on a section of the asteroid belt where several large rocks had been grouped together. At first it looked like a natural formation, but as the image sharpened, details became clear that made no sense. What they were looking at was definitely artificial, but it was unlike any spacecraft in the Imperial database. The structure appeared to be built from actual asteroids, welded and fused together into a single massive object. Hull plating from human ships covered sections of the rocky surface, while what looked like engine exhausts protruded from various points. The whole thing was easily 3 times the size of Admiral Zexithara's flagship. "That cannot be a ship," Commander Veltar said, staring at the display. "It is too large. No species builds ships that size from asteroid material." The sensor operator worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, I'm reading massive power signatures from inside that object. Whatever it is definitely artificial and it is definitely active." As they watched, crude human writing became visible along one side of the massive structure. The letters were painted in simple white paint across the dark asteroid surface. "UNSV Absolute Unit." Zexithara felt a chill run through his body. The humans had built something that defied every rule of spacecraft design he knew. Ships were supposed to be sleek, efficient, and built from lightweight materials. This thing looked like someone had decided to hollow out several asteroids and turn them into a single vessel. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed the interior of what appeared to be a command center carved directly into rock. A human female in a simple blue uniform sat in a chair that looked like it had been welded together from scrap metal. Behind her, other humans worked at stations that appeared to be built into the asteroid walls themselves. "Greetings," the human said in perfectly clear galactic standard. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Vessel Absolute Unit. We have been expecting you." Zexathara composed himself quickly. I am Admiral Zexathara of the Third Imperial Fleet. By order of the Galactic Empire, this system is now under Imperial control. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. Captain Chen smiled, and something about that expression made the Admiral uncomfortable. We appreciate the offer, Admiral, but we will have to decline. Earth is not interested in joining your empire. You do not understand, Zexathara said, his voice hardening. This is not a negotiation. Look around you. You face the might of an entire Imperial fleet. Your single vessel, no matter how large, cannot stand against us. You might be surprised, Captain Chen replied calmly. Would you like to find out? The transmission ended. Commander Veltar looked at his admiral with confusion. Sir, surely they cannot be serious. That is just one ship against our entire fleet. Zexathara studied the massive asteroid ship on his display. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans were acting too confident, too calm. Either they were completely insane or they knew something the Empire did not. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target their engines and weapon systems. Try to disable rather than destroy. I want to understand what they think they are doing. The Third Fleet moved into attack formation with practiced efficiency. 27 Imperial cruisers and destroyers took position around the human vessel, their energy weapons charging and missile tubes loading. The Crimson Dawn led the formation, its main plasma cannon aimed directly at the center of the asteroid ship. All ships report ready. Admiral, announced the tactical officer. Zexathara looked at the massive human vessel one more time. It just sat there in space, not moving, not raising shields, not powering weapons. Either the humans were paralyzed with fear, or this was the most elaborate suicide mission in galactic history. Fire. 27 Imperial warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams lanced across space, striking the asteroid hull of the human vessel. Energy missiles followed, their warheads designed to overload enemy shields and disable ship systems. The attack should have ended the battle in seconds. Imperial weapons were designed to penetrate any known defensive system and disable ships with surgical precision. Instead, the plasma beams struck the asteroid surface and simply spread out across the rock like water hitting a stone. The missiles exploded against the hull and accomplished nothing more than blackening small sections of the surface. The massive human ship sat in space completely undamaged. Impossible, whispered Commander Veltar. Zexathara stared at the tactical display in shock. Nothing could absorb that much firepower without taking damage. The humans had not even raised energy shields. They were just sitting there, letting Imperial weapons strike their ship, and somehow remaining completely unaffected. Then the asteroid ship began to move. For something that size, it should have been slow and clumsy. Instead, it turned with surprising grace and began accelerating toward the Imperial fleet. As it moved, sections of the asteroid hull began to open like flower petals, revealing dark spaces within. Admiral, the sensor operator said, his voice tight with fear. I am detecting massive weapon signatures from inside that ship. Energy levels are off our scales. The human vessel completed its turn and faced the Imperial fleet directly. In the silence of space, it looked like an ancient mountain that had somehow learned to fly and decided to go to war. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair, carved directly from the asteroid rock that surrounded her. The bridge of the Absolute Unit looked nothing like the sleek control rooms of other spacefaring civilizations. Instead of elegant curves and smooth surfaces, everything was built from practical necessity. Control panels were welded to rock walls, cables ran through carved channels in the stone, and the main viewing screen was simply a large monitor bolted to what used to be the interior wall of an asteroid. Ma'am, the Imperial fleet has fired on us, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from the weapons station. Plasma beams and energy missiles. No damage to report, Sarah nodded calmly. She had expected this. The Empire always attacked first and asked questions later. It was their way of showing primitive species how outclassed they were. Unfortunately for them, humans had a different approach to shipbuilding than anyone else in the galaxy. How thick is our hull at the impact points? She asked. Approximately 200 meters of solid rock plus the titanium plating, came the reply. Their weapons are just making scorch marks on the surface, Sarah smiled. When human engineers first learned that other species built their ships from lightweight materials for speed and efficiency, they had asked a simple question. Why not just make the ship thick enough that weapons cannot hurt it? The answer, according to every other civilization, was that such a ship would be too heavy and too slow to be practical. Humans had decided to test that theory. All stations. Report status, Sarah ordered. Engineering reports all reactors online, called out Chief Engineer Kowalski from his station. Fusion plants 1 through 15 are running at optimal efficiency. We have power to spare. Navigation reports ready for movement, announced Ensign Park. All engine clusters responding normally. Weapon systems are armed and ready, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported with obvious excitement. All batteries loaded and targeting systems locked on Imperial vessels. Sarah stood up from her chair and walked to the main viewing screen. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, she could see the Imperial fleet spread out before them. Their ships were beautiful in their own way, sleek, elegant vessels that looked like they had been designed by artists rather than engineers. Each one was probably fast, maneuverable, and packed with advanced technology. They were also about to learn why humans did not care about elegance. Open a channel to the Imperial flagship, Sarah ordered. The communications officer worked at his panel. Channel open, Captain. The main screen split to show Admiral Zexathera on his pristine bridge. The alien looked confused and somewhat angry. Behind him, other members of his crew moved with the precise efficiency that marked advanced civilizations. This is impossible, the Admiral said without preamble. Our weapons should have destroyed your vessel. What kind of defensive technology are you using? Sarah clasped her hands behind her back. It is called rock, Admiral. Lots and lots of rock. When humans build a ship, we make sure it can take a hit. That is not how space combat works, Zexathera protested. Ships must be fast and maneuverable. You cannot simply make them too heavy to damage. Watch us, Sarah replied and cut the transmission. She turned to face her crew. These men and women had volunteered for what everyone thought was a suicide mission. When the Empire's approach was detected, Earth's governments had argued about what to do. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to gather the entire human fleet for a desperate last stand. The military engineers had proposed a different option. They had spent the last 50 years building mining and construction platforms in the asteroid belt. What if, instead of building traditional warships, they simply turned some asteroids into the biggest guns the galaxy had ever seen? Everyone thought it was crazy. Sarah had volunteered to command the prototype. Ensign Park, take us forward, she ordered. Nice and slow. Let them get a good look at what they are dealing with. The Absolute unit began to move. Despite its massive size, the ship accelerated smoothly. Human engineers had solved the problem of moving something so large by the simple expedient of attaching enough engines to it. Fusion rockets protruded from every available surface, their combined thrust capable of moving mountains, which was exactly what they were doing. As the asteroid ship approached the Imperial fleet, weapon ports began to open along its hull. What the Empire had taken for natural craters and mining excavations revealed themselves to be carefully camouflaged gun emplacements. Massive barrel-like structures extended from the rock surface as railgun systems came online. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, all weapon systems report ready to fire. We have targeting locks on every ship in their fleet. Sarah nodded. Weapons free. Show them what human engineering looks like. The Absolute unit opened fire. The weapons that emerged from the asteroid hull were not the elegant energy beams favored by advanced civilizations. Instead, massive railguns fired chunks of tungsten and steel at significant fractions of light speed. Missile silos launched simple but effective kinetic warheads. Most impressively, several of the larger weapon systems began hurling entire small asteroids at the Imperial fleet using magnetic accelerators. The effect was immediate and devastating. Admiral Zexathera watched in horror as his beautiful, efficient warships began to buckle and break under the assault. Imperial energy shields designed to deflect plasma beams and particle weapons proved useless against simple chunks of matter traveling at incredible speeds. The elegant armor plating that protected against energy weapons crumpled like paper when hit by multi-ton projectiles. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted, but his ships were too close together and the human weapons fired too fast. The primitive kinetic projectiles seemed to be everywhere at once. The Imperial destroyer Swift Victory took a direct hit from what appeared to be a small moon traveling at impossible speed. The ship's entire midsection simply ceased to exist. The cruiser Stellar Pride tried to retreat, but found itself in the path of a stream of tungsten rounds that punched through its hull like bullets through tissue paper. "Sir, we are losing ships," Commander Veltar reported, his voice tight with panic. "Our shields cannot stop their weapons. They are using primitive projectile technology, but the velocities are enormous." Zexthera could not understand what he was seeing. The humans were winning a space battle using technology that was thousands of years old. They were throwing rocks, essentially, but throwing them so hard and so fast that the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy could not stop them. "Return fire," he ordered desperately. "All ships concentrate fire on that asteroid ship." The remaining Imperial vessels turned their weapons on the Absolute unit and fired everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion missiles, and quantum torpedoes struck the massive human vessel in a coordinated barrage that should have reduced any ship to atomic particles. The asteroid ship continued firing without pause. The Imperial weapons left black scorch marks on its hull and nothing more. "Captain," Chief Engineer Kowalski reported over the comm system, "the Empire boys are tickling us again. Hull temperature has risen by about 2 degrees. Should I turn on the cooling systems?" Sarah almost laughed. "Not necessary, Chief. How are our ammunition supplies?" "We have enough tungsten rods to fight for about 6 months," came the reply. "And the asteroid belt has plenty more rocks if we need them." The Imperial fleet was in full retreat now, their elegant formations broken and scattered. Several ships trailed atmosphere and debris as they tried to escape the range of the human weapons. Others simply tumbled through space, their crews either dead or unconscious. Sarah watched them go with satisfaction. The first test of human military engineering had been a complete success. The Empire had come expecting to face a primitive species with crude weapons and simple tactics. Instead, they had encountered humans, who looked at the problem of space combat and decided that the best defense was making your ship too tough to hurt, and the best offense was making your weapons impossible to stop. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about human engineering. When in doubt, make it bigger and add more guns. Admiral Zexthera gripped the command rail of his flagship as another Imperial cruiser exploded in the distance. The Crimson Dawn shook from the impact of human weapons striking its hull, and warning lights flashed across every control panel on the bridge. In 30 years of naval service, he had never seen anything like this. "Sir, the Golden Spear has lost main power," reported Commander Veltar, his forearms working frantically at his station.
"The Void Hunter is venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches."
"The Night's Edge has gone completely silent." The Admiral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Half of his fleet was either destroyed or disabled, and they had not managed to inflict any significant damage on the human vessel. Every rule of space combat that he had learned was proving useless against these primitives. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our intelligence report said they barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their technology should be centuries behind ours." The sensor operator looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, I think I understand what they are doing. They are not using energy weapons at all. Every projectile they fire is solid matter accelerated to extreme velocities." "That is impossible," Commander Veltar protested. "Kinetic weapons require enormous amounts of energy to be effective in space combat. No power system could sustain such an attack." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "I am intercepting human transmissions from their asteroid ship. They appear to be discussing their weapon systems openly." Zexthera felt a chill of dread. "Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with human voices speaking in their crude but efficient language. The translation system worked quickly to convert their words into galactic standard. "Engineering to bridge," came a calm human voice. "Reactor output is steady at 40% capacity. We can maintain current rate of fire indefinitely." "Copy that, Chief," replied what must be Captain Chen. "Weapons, what is our ammunition status?" "We have used approximately 3% of our tungsten rod supply," another voice reported. "At current rate of fire, we can continue for approximately 250 hours before needing to resupply." Zexthera felt his mandibles drop open. The humans were treating this devastating battle like a routine training exercise. They were using less than half their ship's power and had barely touched their ammunition supplies. "Sir," the sensor operator said urgently, "I am detecting movement in other parts of the asteroid belt. There are more ships approaching." The main display shifted to show the broader tactical situation, and what Admiral Zexthera saw made his blood run cold. Across the asteroid belt, more massive structures were beginning to move. what he had taken for mining installations and asteroid processing facilities were revealing themselves to be additional human warships. Each one was built in the same impossible style as the absolute unit, actual asteroids converted into mobile weapons platforms. Some appeared to be hollowed-out moons. Others looked like space stations that had been modified for combat. One massive structure appeared to be an entire planetary ring system that had been turned into a single enormous ship. "Impossible," whispered Commander Veltar. "They have weaponized their entire asteroid belt." The largest of the approaching vessels was beyond anything in Admiral Zexathara's experience. It appeared to be built from a captured comet. Ice and rock fused together into a ship the size of a small moon. As it moved closer, weapon ports opened along its surface like the eyes of some ancient space-dwelling beast. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UNSV Big Stick," came a new human voice over the communications channel. "We are moving to support the Absolute Unit. All Imperial vessels are advised to surrender immediately." Behind the Big Stick, more human ships approached. Each one was unique, built from whatever large object had been available when construction began. Admiral Zexathara identified what appeared to be a weaponized space elevator, its massive structure bristling with railguns and missile launchers. Another ship looked like it had been built from a disassembled space station, its modular components rearranged into the shape of a giant hammer. "Admiral," the communications officer said with panic in his voice, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They want to talk." "Put them through," Zexathara ordered. Though he dreaded what he might hear, Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen again. Behind her, the asteroid bridge looked exactly the same as before, as if she had not just been commanding a devastating space battle. "Admiral Zexathara," she said politely, "I hope you are beginning to understand your situation. The ship you have been fighting is just our prototype. As you can see, we have been busy in our asteroid belt." The Admiral tried to maintain his composure. "What do you want?" "Nothing complicated," Captain Chen replied. "We want you to leave our solar system and not come back. We want you to report to your superiors that Earth is not interested in joining the Galactic Empire, and we want you to understand that if you attempt to return with a larger fleet, we will be ready for you." Behind her, one of the human crew members called out, "Captain, the Big Stick is asking if they can test their new orbital bombardment system on the Imperial flagship." "Not yet." "Lieutenant," Captain Chen replied calmly, "give the Admiral a chance to make the smart decision." Zexathara looked at his tactical display again. The human fleet had grown to include dozens of massive vessels, each one larger than his flagship. His own force was down to less than half strength, and every minute of combat had proven that Imperial weapons were useless against human engineering. "Sir," Commander Veltar said quietly, "recommend immediate withdrawal. We cannot win this engagement." The Admiral knew his second-in-command was right, but accepting defeat to a primitive species would end his career and possibly his life. The Empire did not tolerate failure, especially failure on this scale. "Open a channel to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Priority 1 emergency transmission." When the connection was established, Admiral Zexathara found himself looking at the stern face of Fleet Marshal Kethvar, Supreme Commander of all Imperial naval forces. "Admiral," the Marshal said coldly, "explain why you are requesting emergency assistance for what should have been a routine subjugation mission." Zexathara took a deep breath. "Sir, the humans have developed weapons and tactics that our current fleet cannot counter. They have built warships from asteroid material that our weapons cannot penetrate. Their kinetic weapon systems can destroy our ships with ease." "Impossible," Fleet Marshal Kethvar replied. "No primitive species possesses such technology. You are making excuses for poor tactical planning." "With respect, sir," Zexathara said desperately, "I am transmitting our sensor data now. The humans have weaponized their entire asteroid belt. They have ships the size of moons. They are treating our attack as a minor inconvenience." The Fleet Marshal's expression changed as he reviewed the incoming data. His eyes widened as he saw the size and power readings of the human vessels. "By the void," he whispered. "What kind of species builds ships from asteroids?" "The kind that asks why not instead of why," Captain Chen's voice said suddenly. Both Imperial officers turned in shock to see that the human had somehow tapped into their secure communication channel. "Hello, Fleet Marshal," Captain Chen continued pleasantly. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Forces. I thought you might like to hear directly from us about our intentions. This channel is encrypted with quantum security protocols, Fleet Marshal Kethvar protested. How are you accessing it? We asked our computer engineers to break your encryption, Captain Chen replied. They said it was impossible with current technology. So we built better technology. Humans have a saying, if you cannot find a way, make one. The Fleet Marshal stared at her image with growing alarm. What do you want? We want to be left alone, Captain Chen said simply. Earth has no interest in joining your empire or fighting your wars. We will defend ourselves if attacked, but we prefer to focus on more constructive activities. Such as? Captain Chen smiled, and again there was something unsettling about that expression. Building bigger ships and better weapons, mostly. It turns out that converting asteroids into mobile weapons platforms is quite addictive. We have some very exciting projects in development. Behind her, another human voice called out, Captain, the engineering team wants to know if we can show them the planet cracker. Not yet, Chief, Captain Chen replied. I think the Admiral has seen enough for today. Fleet Marshal Kethvar sat in his command center aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Dominion, 3 star systems away from the disaster that had befallen Admiral Zexathera's fleet. Before him, holographic displays showed the intercepted human communications from the Sol system, and what he heard made him question everything he thought he knew about warfare. Database. Compile all available intelligence on human military engineering. He ordered his AI assistant. Compilation complete, Fleet Marshal. The artificial mind replied. Warning. Human engineering practices do not conform to established galactic military doctrine. That, Kethvar thought grimly, was becoming obvious. The first intercepted transmission showed human engineers discussing their ship construction methods. What he heard defied 3,000 years of naval architecture. The problem with traditional ship design, a human engineer was explaining to his colleagues, is that everyone focuses on weight and speed. But what if we just don't care about those things? What if we make the ship so tough that it doesn't need to dodge anything? But the fuel requirements alone would be astronomical, another human protested. So we build bigger fuel tanks, came the reply. And bigger engines. And if it's still too heavy, we build even bigger engines. What about maneuverability? We attach engines to every surface. If you have enough thrust, anything can be maneuverable. Fleet Marshal Kethvar paused the recording and rubbed his temple with 2 of his hands. The humans were discussing fundamental problems of spaceship design, as if they were simple engineering challenges to be solved with more materials and bigger components. The next transmission was even worse. Command. This is Chief Engineer Kowalski aboard the Absolute Unit. The recording began. We have completed testing of our primary weapon systems. I am pleased to report that our Throw Rocks Really Hard approach is working exactly as intended. Clarify Throw Rocks Really Hard, came Captain Chen's voice. Ma'am, our main railgun can accelerate a tungsten rod to approximately 15% of light speed. At that velocity, the kinetic energy is sufficient to penetrate any known armor system. The beauty of it is that it's just physics. No exotic particles, no energy shields to worry about. Just good old-fashioned momentum transfer. And ammunition supplies? Effectively unlimited, Captain. The asteroid belt contains more projectile material than we could use in 1,000 years of continuous warfare. If we run low on processed tungsten, we can just grab another asteroid and throw the whole thing. Fleet Marshal Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. The humans were not just building impossible ships. They were approaching warfare itself from a completely different direction. Where civilized species developed elegant energy weapons and sophisticated defensive systems, humans asked a simple question. What happens if we just hit the enemy really, really hard? The third transmission made him understand the true scope of the problem. Asteroid Mining Station 7 to Earth Command, a human voice reported. Conversion of mining platform Delta to weapons configuration is complete. The station can now accelerate itself to combat speeds and brings 47 railgun systems online. Designation: UNSV Sledgehammer. Copy that, Station 7, came the reply from Earth. How many more platforms can be converted? All of them, sir. We have approximately 312 mining platforms, processing stations, and construction facilities in the belt. Each one can be converted to military configuration within 6 months. Begin conversion immediately. Priority goes to the largest platforms first. Fleet Marshal Kethvar stopped the recording and stared at his tactical display. The humans were not just building a few experimental warships. They were converting their entire industrial infrastructure into a mobile weapons platform. Every mining station, every construction facility, every piece of equipment in their asteroid belt was being turned into an instrument of war. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have received Admiral Zexathara's full after-action report." "Display it." The holographic projector showed a detailed breakdown of the battle, including sensor readings from the human ships. What Kethvar saw made his worst fears come true. The human vessel that had destroyed half the Third Fleet was not even a proper warship. According to the technical analysis, it was literally a hollowed-out asteroid with engines, weapons, and life support systems bolted onto it. The armor that had proven impervious to Imperial weapons was not advanced composite material or energy shielding. It was just rock. Lots and lots of rock. "Computer, analyze human defensive strategy," he ordered. "Analysis complete," the AI replied. Human defensive philosophy appears to be based on the principle of make the ship too thick for weapons to penetrate. Their vessels sacrifice speed and efficiency for extreme durability. Estimated armor thickness on the primary target, 200 to 300 meters of solid rock. That should make their ships too slow and clumsy for effective combat. Negative, Fleet Marshal. Humans compensate for increased mass by installing proportionally larger engine systems. Their ships achieve adequate maneuverability through brute force application of thrust. Kethvar felt a headache building behind his eyes. The humans were solving complex engineering problems by simply ignoring them and applying more resources until the problems went away. What about their weapon systems? Human weapons technology focuses on kinetic energy rather than exotic particles or energy projection. They accelerate solid projectiles to extreme velocities using magnetic acceleration. While primitive in concept, the energy levels involved make their weapons devastatingly effective against any known defensive system. But surely the power requirements, humans, have installed multiple fusion reactors on each vessel. Rather than optimizing for efficiency, they generate overwhelming amounts of power and use it for both propulsion and weapon systems. The Fleet Marshal sat back in his command chair and tried to process what he was learning. The humans had looked at every rule of spacecraft design and decided to break them all. Instead of building fast, efficient ships with elegant weapon systems, they built flying fortresses that moved by brute force and attacked by throwing things really hard. The worst part was that it worked. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the Sol system. It appears to be a general broadcast to all Imperial forces." "Put it through." Captain Chen's image appeared on the main display. She was still sitting in her asteroid command center, looking as calm and confident as ever. "Greetings to the Galactic Empire," she began. "This is Captain Sarah Chen, representing the United Nations of Earth. We understand that our recent defensive actions may have caused some confusion among your military planners." Fleet Marshal Kethvar leaned forward, eager to hear what the humans had to say. "We want to make our position clear," Captain Chen continued. "Earth has no interest in joining your empire or participating in your galactic politics. We simply want to be left alone to pursue our own development. However, we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." Behind her, Kethvar could see human engineers working at stations carved directly into the asteroid walls. Everything about their technology looked crude and improvised, yet it had proven devastatingly effective. "We realize that our approach to space combat may seem unusual," Captain Chen said with a slight smile. "Most civilizations develop sophisticated energy weapons and advanced defensive systems. Humans prefer a more direct approach. We have a saying, when in doubt, hit it with a bigger hammer." The transmission showed images of human shipyards in the asteroid belt. Massive construction platforms were converting asteroids into warships using techniques that looked more like mining operations than military engineering. Entire rocky bodies were being hollowed out, reinforced, and fitted with engines and weapons. "We hope this demonstration has been educational," Captain Chen concluded. "Earth is willing to establish peaceful diplomatic relations with any civilization that respects our independence. However, any attempt to conquer or subjugate our world will be met with appropriate force." The transmission ended, leaving Fleet Marshal Kethvar staring at a blank screen. His aide approached cautiously. Sir, what are your orders regarding the Sol system? Kethvar considered his options. He could assemble a larger fleet and attempt to overwhelm the human defenses. But the intelligence report suggested that the humans would simply build more ships and bigger weapons. He could try to find weaknesses in their technology, but their approach was so crude and direct that there seemed to be nothing sophisticated to exploit. Or he could do something that the Galactic Empire had never done in 3,000 years of expansion. Send a message to Imperial Command, he ordered. Recommend that the Sol system be classified as a restricted zone. All Imperial vessels are to avoid human space until further notice. Sir, his aide protested, the Empire does not retreat from primitive species. Fleet Marshal Kethvar looked at the tactical displays one more time, showing the impossible human ships and their devastating weapons. No, he agreed, but apparently we retreat from species that decide the laws of physics are more like suggestions. 6 months after the disaster at Sol, Emperor Vexthul the Eternal sat in his throne room aboard the mobile palace ship Heart of Empire, reviewing reports that challenged everything he believed about galactic civilization. Around him, his advisors shifted nervously as they waited for his reaction to the intelligence briefings. Read me the summary again, the Emperor commanded, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 3 millennia of absolute rule. High Admiral Korseth, Supreme Commander of all Imperial forces, cleared his throat and began reading from the official report. The species known as humans have established a defensive perimeter around their solar system, using unconventional military technology. All attempts to classify their capabilities using standard Imperial assessment protocols have failed. Failed how? Sir, they appear to have weaponized the concept of making things bigger until they work, the Admiral replied, his voice heavy with disbelief. Our military analysts cannot find any theoretical limits to their approach. Emperor Vexthul leaned forward on his crystal throne. In 5,000 years of life, he had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. None had ever confused him quite like this. Show me the latest intelligence, he ordered. The holographic display activated, showing the Sol system as observed by long-range Imperial sensors. What the Emperor saw made him question his understanding of engineering. The human asteroid belt had been almost completely converted into a mobile defense network. Hundreds of massive ships patrolled between the planets, each one built from asteroids, comets, or space installations. The largest vessels were beyond anything in Imperial records, flying mountains bristling with weapons and propulsion systems. Computer, identify the largest human vessel, the Emperor commanded. Designating primary target, the AI responded. Human vessel designation, UNSV absolutely ridiculous. Estimated mass equivalent to a small moon. Primary armament appears to be the entire ship, which functions as a kinetic projectile weapon. Explain. The vessel is designed to accelerate to significant fractions of light speed and impact enemy targets directly. Secondary armament includes approximately 4,000 individual weapon systems of various types. Emperor Vexthul felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Genuine confusion. They built a ship designed to ram other ships? Affirmative. Intelligence suggests that human engineers determined that the most efficient way to destroy large targets was to hit them with something bigger and faster. The Emperor studied the display more carefully. Around the massive ramming ship, smaller vessels moved in formation. Each one was unique, apparently built from whatever materials had been available when construction began. Some looked like weaponized space stations, others resembled asteroid mining equipment converted for military use. What is the tactical assessment? He asked. High Admiral Korseth consulted his datapad. Sir, our best military analysts conclude that the human fleet could not be defeated by any conventional Imperial force. Their ships are too durable to be destroyed by energy weapons, and their own weapons can penetrate any known defensive system. Recommendations? Avoid Sol system entirely, sir. Classify humans as a non-contact species and establish a buffer zone around their territory. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. The Galactic Empire had conquered thousands of worlds and absorbed hundreds of species. They had never been forced to simply avoid anyone before. What makes them so dangerous? He asked finally. Their approach to problem-solving, sir, replied his chief science advisor, stepping forward. When humans encounter an engineering challenge, they do not try to find the most efficient solution. They simply apply overwhelming force until the problem goes away. Give me an example. They're faster than light drive, sir. Most species develop elegant hyperdrive systems that fold space or manipulate exotic particles. Humans looked at the problem and decided to build an engine so powerful it just pushes the ship through space faster than light should allow. The Emperor felt a headache building. That should be impossible. Yes, sir. Humans appear to specialize in making impossible things work through sheer determination and excessive engineering. The holographic display shifted to show intercepted human communications. The Emperor listened with growing amazement as human engineers discussed their latest projects. Orbital Defense Platform 93 is now operational, a human voice reported. We have successfully converted the moon of Jupiter into a mobile weapons platform. Designation UNSV Moonshot. How mobile? Came the reply. It can achieve approximately 10% of light speed, sir. When it hits something, that something stops being there. Outstanding. What about the Planet Cracker project? Engineering team reports that we can have it operational within 2 years. Once complete, we will be able to accelerate entire planets to significant fractions of light speed. For what purpose? Mostly to see if we can, sir. Though I imagine throwing planets at people would be quite effective in combat. Emperor Vexthul turned off the recording and stared at his advisors. They are building weapons that can throw planets. Yes, sir, High Admiral Corseth confirmed. Human engineering philosophy appears to be, if it is worth doing, it is worth overdoing. They do not build one ship when they can build 100. They do not use small weapons when big weapons are available. But surely there must be limits to what they can construct. His science advisor shook his head. Sir, humans have access to the entire resources of their solar system, and they appear willing to convert all of it into military hardware if necessary. Their industrial capacity is growing exponentially as they automate more of their construction processes. The Emperor looked at the display again, showing the impossible human fleet. Each ship represented a complete rejection of civilized engineering principles, yet they were devastatingly effective. Sir, his communications officer announced, we are receiving a transmission from the Sol system. It appears to be addressed to you personally. Put it through. The main display showed Captain Sarah Chen sitting in what appeared to be a new command center. This one looked slightly more refined than the asteroid bridge he had seen in previous reports, though it still appeared to be carved directly from rock. Your Imperial Majesty, she said with a polite nod. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Forces. I hope you received our previous messages regarding Earth's position on joining your empire. Emperor Vexthul composed himself carefully. We did. Your defensive demonstration was quite impressive. Thank you, sir. We have been working on some new projects since then. Would you like to see? Before he could respond, the display shifted to show the human asteroid belt. What the Emperor saw made his blood run cold. The humans had not just been building more ships. They had been building bigger ships, much bigger ships. Vessels the size of small planets moved slowly through space, their surfaces covered with weapon systems that defied comprehension. This is our newest prototype, Captain Chen explained. The UNSV Excessive Force. It is approximately the size of your smaller moons and can accelerate to 15% of light speed. We estimate it could destroy most star systems simply by flying through them. Why would you build such a thing? The Emperor asked weakly. Captain Chen smiled that unsettling human smile. Because we could, Your Majesty. Humans have a saying, go big or go home. We decided to go big. Behind her, another human voice called out, Captain, the engineering team wants to know if we should start work on the Galaxy-class weapons platform. Not yet, Lieutenant, Captain Chen replied. I think His Majesty understands our position. The Emperor stared at the impossible ships on his display. What do you want from us? Nothing, sir, Captain Chen said simply. We want to be left alone to pursue our own development. In exchange, we promise not to share our engineering techniques with other species or use our weapons outside our own solar system. And if we attempt to invade again, Captain Chen's expression became serious. Your Majesty, we really prefer peaceful solutions. War is expensive and wastes resources that could be used for more interesting projects. But if forced to fight, we will respond with appropriate force. Define appropriate force. Well, sir, we have been working on some theoretical weapon systems that could accelerate entire star systems to significant fractions of light speed. We call it the Galaxy Cannon Project. But let's not talk about that unless we have to. The transmission ended, leaving Emperor Vexthul staring at a blank screen. After a long moment, he turned to his advisors. New Imperial Directive. The Sol system is hereby classified as a restricted zone. No Imperial vessel is to approach within 50 light-years of human space without explicit permission from this throne. Sir, High Admiral Korseth protested, the Empire does not retreat from anyone. Emperor Vexthul looked at the tactical display one more time, showing the impossible human weapons that could throw planets like stones. We are not retreating, Admiral, he said quietly. We are maintaining a safe distance from a species that builds weapons by asking, what is the biggest thing we can throw at our enemies? And then build something to throw it. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.